This presentation is about the book The Skin That We Speak. It will talk about the overview and the connections that we made from the objectives in the post-university class titled EDU 604, Diversity and Achievement. This book had two authors, Lisa Dilpit and Joanne Kilgore Doughty. Lisa Dilpit is a MacArthur Fellow, received the award for Outstanding Contribution to Education in 1993 from the Harvard Graduate School of Education, which held her as a visionary scholar and a woman of courage. She is the author of Other People's Children, Cultural Conflict in the Classroom, and is currently the Executive Director for the Center for Urban Education and Innovation at Florida International University. Then Joanne Kilgore Doughty is an Associate Professor of Adolescent Adult Literacy at the Kent State University in the Department of Teaching, Leadership, and Curriculum Studies. She is also the author of GED Stories, Black Women and Their Struggle for Social Equity. The Skin That We Speak is a book with a compile of essays that talk about language and language attitudes that can potentially be harmful to the children that we have in our classrooms. The book is divided up into three sections: language and identity, language in the classroom, and teacher knowledge. Multicultural education has had so many meanings for me while growing up and working in the educational field, making the definition of it sort of complex. According to a reading, multicultural education is a progressive approach for transforming education that holistically critiques and responds to discriminatory policies and practice in education. When I think of multicultural education, I think of exposing the students with information about different cultures to allow them to learn about the culture. The Skin That We Speak touches on culture all throughout the book and how it relates to language in the classroom. On page 89, the book quoted, "Language is rooted in and is an aspect of culture. Culture is nothing more nor less than the shared ways that groups of people have created to use and define their environment. All people, every group of people on the face of the earth have created culture." It is important to have staff on your team that is multicultural literate and capable of including and embracing families and communities to create an environment that is supportive of multiple perspectives, experiences, and democracy. Multicultural education has required comprehensive school reform as multicultural education must pervade all aspects of the school community and organization. Language is related to culture and diversity on multiple levels. One way I think of this is in some cultures their language has a different tone than others, and tone plays a vital part in teaching. To gain a positive classroom environment, the teacher needs to ensure they are projecting a positive tone to the students. We do fully support the Common Core by emphasizing the importance of global communication, requiring students to think critically, and helping students make connections. Also, according to Chiarello, our job is to search for ways to relate the less familiar with the more familiar, increasing our students' vocabulary and knowledge base. As teachers, we need to understand the concept of culture and how it can affect so much that happens inside the classroom. Cultural competency in practice recognizes there are many layers to any given culture, such as assumptions, behaviors, and expectations. Foreign-born children have the daunting task of deciphering these unspoken rules while trying to learn in a new setting. Educators need to be informed of other cultures and how their belief systems may not align with that of the United States. The article, Bridging Cultures in Our Schools, New Approaches at Work, highlights the significance of cultural awareness in the education field. It stated, collectivism and individualism reflect fundamental different perceptions about knowledge, cognition, and social development. Collectivistic societies are quite hierarchical, and social interaction is strongly defined by age and gender. Children in such societies are less likely to be asked to formulate and share their opinions or to talk about what they are learning in school. According to the book The Skin That We Speak, instilling in our children respect for and familiarity with other dialects would allow them to construe a truer version of American history, be fuller human beings for having access to multiple expressions of reality, and be better prepared to deal with the complexities of shifting, shrinking word. As educators, it is very important that we build a bridge between what students know and what they need to learn. We need to also remember to embrace students' cultural backgrounds to make our teaching effective. Cultural responsive student teaching often requires confronting some of the most painful divides in American life. According to Trumbull, teachers who serve each day as cultural mediators know the challenge goes beyond language. Even as they try to help immigrant students navigate a new system of education, their own teaching methods and most routine classroom expectation can come into perplexing conflict in children's cultural ways of knowing and behaving. For example, a student may resist offering the right answer after another student has answered incorrectly in order not to embarrass that person in front of the group. Teachers continue to strive to help students in every humanly way possible, no matter what the situation is. The book The Skin That We Speak stated, when formal education is no longer threatened to demean them, students are more than willing to master it. When teachers understand that they cannot force a language form upon their students, those students are more than willing to acknowledge that being trilingual, being as proficient in formal English and professional or technical English are as they are in their home English can only make them more effective. Although wealth and privilege are not the same, it is true that privilege often leads to wealth. Privilege is a special right, advantage, or immunity granted, or available only to one person or group of people. Privilege is constructed and normalized by the established frameworks of society, narratives that have been developed based on the power struggles of history. This means that people are classified by those who encounter them, and since these views are so influenced by the constructive norm, the classification may be an unconscious act. In other words, even once you are aware of privilege, it is extremely difficult to eliminate it. Some types of privilege include, but are not limited to, male privilege, white privilege, racial privilege in general, privilege based on attractiveness, privilege pertaining to physical abilities, privilege relating to mental health, privilege based on sexual orientation, privilege based on gender, and privilege based on class and or social status. Language can lead to prejudgment. What I mean by this is for some who is used to speaking with ebonics or slang or dialect might be prejudged during a job interview. But by the end of the day, that person is a hard worker. Language is similar to how a person conducts themselves to society and around other people. I learned about different children's experiences leaving their country and coming to reside in the United States. These children arriving from other countries have one common experience when coming, and that is attending a public school. The right set of supports in and around the school can put a newcomer on a path to self-sufficiency, academic success, and options for the future. Students from other countries come to America with an enormous range of backgrounds and education levels. The needs of those who receive the formal education in their home country are vastly differently from the needs of refugees fleeing a war-torn nation who may have little or education and are suffering from trauma. It takes more than an English as a second language teacher for schools to successfully support students who have recently arrived in the United States. Although this work is complex and varies depending on the student and host communities, the schools and districts that are most successful in helping newcomers become self-sufficient, successful learners have a few things in common. Strong school leaders, a commitment to knowledge and understanding newcomer students and their families, effective use of data, and wraparound community supports. As educators, we need to remember the reasons why families left their country. Children of immigration stated, immigration has important psychological and social implications for the individual and the family group. One of the readings in Chapter 5 also mentioned some great reflection questions that every school should be asking themselves if they have children who are from other countries. These questions include, what are the attitudes about schooling and education of the children of immigrants upon arrival? How do these attitudes change over time? How do their prior experience of schools in their country of origin influence their subsequent functioning in U.S. schools? And what role do immigrant parents play in the successful schooling of their children? Are schools preparing those children to face the challenges of an increasingly competitive global economy? There are many insights that can affect me going forward in my personal and professional life. I believe that by having the awareness of other cultures and the willingness to have patience and learn about that child, to me it is no different than working with a child who does not have a diagnosis yet in their development. By getting to know the child, their strengths and weaknesses, their likes and dislikes, there are ways to communicate and ways to teach a child with English as a second language with just a little more patience with the child and taking that extra time. I will always remember to be cultural sensitive to the child's beliefs and culture. Scholastic said it well. Building positive identities and a respect for differences means weaving diversity into the fabric of children's everyday lives. Working with families is an important first step in helping children accept, understand, and value their rich and varied world. School climate and school culture directly impact student success. In the interest of treating students equally, giving them equal chances for success, and equal access to the curriculum, teachers and administrators must recognize the uniqueness and individuality of their students. Teachers have a particular responsibility to recognize and structure their lessons to reflect student differences. This encourages students to recognize themselves and others as individuals. It also encourages the appreciation of a diverse school population and brings a sense of connection between disparate cultural heritage than a single school's culture. It is certainly in the best interest of students and teachers to focus on the richness of our diversity. Recognizing and acknowledging our differences is part of treating students fairly and equally. In conclusion, The Skin That We Speak, the authors seek to explore the links between language and identity, between language and political hierarchy, and between language and cultural conflict. In the book, they try to help the readers realize how much harm we're causing the children by not promoting their dialect in the classroom and making them feel as if the only appropriate language is standard English. We all have a different skin color, and the book helps you realize how much there is much more to learn from a person and see them from behind what's their skin color.